Cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Guy Zumpetta.
Nothing dead, obviously a postmaster. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Keith.
Good that you could join us tonight.
I'm pumping in the back, I can hear.
I'd like to say that I'm really pleased to be here tonight, but I would be, no. Last October, Steve sent me a note, and he said, can we get you to make the long trek out of where I live to come to the Literary Cafe? And I thought, hot dog, the big time. So here I am. Hello to the future generations who will be viewing this, probably etched in silicon or some other strange material. There'll be the recording.
On 8 tracks, they're coming back.
Yeah, that's right. 8 tracks running backwards, the recording medium of the future. The town that I come from is, I like to call it Mantua, named after a famous Italian city. It says that right on the city limits. Settled by a guy named John Lovett in some ridiculously early year, like 1891 or something, whatever it was. It's not really that important, but there is a kind of a mystery. And I thought, in my quest to become the poet laureate of something, I would become the poet laureate of Mantua or Mantua. And I wrote a poem about the place, and I realized that this would probably never work. So this is going to be my first reading for you this evening. This is called Like His Beloved Mantova, which is actually the Italian pronunciation of the town. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Do you want the microphone down a little bit?
No, well, actually, yes. It's because I'm
Because, I mean, it's a, you know, we got a whole video thing. You want to make
Say, and
sure
also,
that-
I want to make sure that if you have your head down,
Yeah.
See, you're pretty.
so go ahead and look at
Oh,
the
geez,
page.
thank you.
It's also our way of making.
Come back after the evening, tell whoever that you're going to the library. I'll be here with you.
Go ahead and look at the page and read how you would.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
These
There you
in
go.
for the chicks.
Only reason I
Actually, before I begin this, I should share with you, thank you, Steve, that in it for the chicks. I read once, somebody said that people write poetry, young men write poetry only for one reason, and that's to get laid. So.
Woohoo! I'll have to. It works too, damn it!
He said young men, Steve.
Burn.
I'm just kidding. You're younger than me, right?
Probably not. No.
I used it when I didn't get laid.
I haven't looked good at MySpace 22 or something like that.
You gotta read the whole thing. It's
Well,
called
yes,
lying.
I did,
That's
but,
my,
you know,
that's my,
Can't trust that.
This is great. This is going to be a 2-hour reading on my part, during which I will read for 3 minutes, and there will be just...
We love the sound of our own voices.
Like his beloved Mantova, in a quantum mechanical universe with its infinite number of futures that can all happen and do, Virgil is dancing through the streets of this Mantua, predictably at home with how the shops and stores touch side by side, in one wall stretched like a canvas from this corner to the next. How quaint, he says, so much like how they will live in Assisi, in little flats carved out of the sandstone. He sighs in relief. There are lakes beyond the hill. Unfazed, they are just flooded scars where people took from the earth what they wanted and left the holes. And he thinks it only slightly odd there are no statues erected to the artisans of the day, no gatherings of poets and philosophers in the square, or frescoed ceilings in the pizzerias where the gods can watch over the rising bread. How hardly a soul remembers the minstrel shows that packed them in long after vaudeville. What he puzzles over most is why the townsfolk call it Manaway. A conundrum he will wrestle through the ages as he slips this dimension to hobnob with Dante, where a different hell awaits them both. Applause is good. Thank you.
We also throw things if we don't.
Throw things. As long as it's round with pictures of presidents, I'm in good shape. I've gone to church every Sunday for years. As a matter of fact, it's kind of considered a sin against my wife if I don't go to church. This is one of the drawbacks of marrying a woman who was going to be a nun at one point in her life. And every so often, the padre will, in his sermon, say something that sticks with you. And that happened to me. I couldn't get it out of my mind, and so after about a week or so, I decided to write something about it. And then I gave it back to him. I have not been excommunicated yet, so I imagine it passed muster. He's actually gone to my website and read some of the stuff, and still lets me in the front door. This is called Love Machine. Love Machine. You threw down your words like a gauntlet, like a dueling glove. I still feel them slap me a week later, this talk of loving your neighbor and praying for enemies. It seemed only natural for a voice to come from somewhere when you finished, and now presenting a differing point of view. One by one, they stepped up to the microphone to beg your pardon and ask, what if? Like, what if everybody was on the same love page? Wouldn't it be too easy to love them back until we all got bored, not having to think twice whether the guy next door is making it with your wife or your broker is churning your account? It wouldn't matter, would it, that nobody ends a phone call anymore with, love you, that little upturned lilt begging the rhetorical question, how's love going at your end? And would the executioner bend over the condemned and give a reassuring little pat on the electrodes, then whisper in his ear for all of society, we still love you, before throwing the switch? What would love mean when it is so common? We no longer have to think twice about it when we say it. Love becoming the filler we insert into discussions of whatever else has become more important.
Yes, even from the bar.
Even from the bar, I feel good.
And it's early, they're not trying to feel
Good.
the love.
I have several really long poems in this book, and I'm going to read one possibly later. It's called Eulogy to a Cat. But to make up for that, I'm going to relate to you a short one. It's only 26 words. If you've never tried this before, you should try doing something really silly in poetry, like writing a 26-word poem beginning with the letters of the alphabet. I guess kids who do poetry classes in college do that all the time. I decided to make it more exciting by doing it backwards. And even though I am prepared, truly, I'm having a hard time finding it. There it is. This is called The Vote. This is my protest. 26 words. Backwards. Zealously you X, wishing virtue upon this stained republic. Quietly, peaceful overtures now march. Love, kindness, justice illuminating hatred's grasp. Finally empowered, democracy's chorus begins anew. It's crooked. I feel like I'm on a boat.
I kept trying to bend it.
Yeah.
No avail.
That's all right. I have a habit of collecting poetry online as video files or audio files, whatever I can get, and I put them on a CD. Sometime driving into work, I will listen to the same CD over and over. And one of my favorite poets is Billy Collins. I enjoy the fact that Billy Collins plays with people that he's, I don't know one gin from another, but I would imagine he's probably like good booze. He goes down smooth. And when you're done, you get some sort of a good buzz out of it, and you feel happy. But again, you pay attention to what somebody is telling you, and sometimes you just can't get a thought out of your mind. And one of the things that Billy Collins wrote about is being in a classroom where he says, I always tell my students to be looking for the great inside of the small. And of course, having a background in some technical pursuits, I would sit there and start taking apart all the possible scenarios of finding something big inside of something small and saying, all right, well, yeah, that one works. Check, 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 check. Oh, here's one that doesn't work. And this poem came out of that. This is called An Alternative to Counting Sheep. An alternative to counting sheep. Each time we meet, you tell me how the large is always hiding inside the small, and you say it with such quiet conviction, like someone who has studied each grain of sand on the beach, that I begin searching for everything inside something else, calling each child to give birth to its own parents just to see if you are correct. That the powerful always lies within the gentle, the great behind the humble, and the unbreakable amid the supple. But dismantle simple as I will, I fail to find the complex, or the obscure, or the elaborate. Just an alchemist's delight that fractures into itself again and again. And by the way, some things never fit inside another, as wisdom finds no home within the foolish, nor chaos among the peaceful. Just as no velvet purse rests inside this paper sack of a thought, which, now settled, lets me return to sleep. Okay, when it's time to quit, just give me the high sign.
No, this is very good. Right? I trust you, Jeff. All right. Yeah. More.
All right. This is another one of my protest pieces. I never really thought much of this. I wrote it. It's like one of those poems that you write and you say, well, I wrote it. I had to write it to get to the good stuff, maybe. But I'll keep it anyhow, because I never throw anything away. I'm one of those people that when I buy a new piece of anything, I save all the paper bags and all the wire ties, put them in the box with the styrofoam inserts, all the pieces of peanut, individually numbered and counted.
You must have a huge house.
No, there's very little living space. This is called Foxy News. If you do the mathematics, you'll know what I'm talking about in the first couple of lines. Foxy News. Piss is no longer on the list of the 7 dirty words, although purportedly one of the 7 was a compound term and another 2 words, bringing the original list closer to 9. Homeland Security is investigating. So leads the evening news as it ignores the deaths from side effects of the sponsor's latest wares and closes with an expose that a killer rock will destroy the Earth at 10:04. Film at 11. Never mind. Added to all becoming extinct in the media, truth, fairness, impartiality. The last one is 6 syllables, by the way, probably qualifying it for a place of honor on someone's fecal scroll. They are organizing a word burning, I hear. All the dictionaries in the land to be rounded up, doused, and sparked. I can only imagine the flames that follow. Pardon? Oh, no, that's all right. I'm in a pretty good roll here. I will slip something into the drink to silence me. I mentioned I was going to read something long, and this is it. This is inspired by the cat running around. Is the cat still here?
Yes. Chicklet.
Chicklet, where are you? This is for you, Chicklet. This is a longish poem. I have never read this in public. It drives my wife crazy because she was the one. She was the one. Eulogy to a cat. And incidentally, if you are any cat lovers here, hold your fire until I'm done. It's not what it seems. Dog lovers here, hold your fire until I'm done. It's not what it seems. All right. Eulogy to a cat. Have you noticed among the uncountable works about companionship, there are so few about cats, while we are left with shelf upon shelf of breakfast cereal when it comes to dogs? What lover of canines has failed to mention, whether hideous mongrel or graceful whippet, the pure and noble pooch sitting in the window, awaiting the master's return, as if it were the second coming? Or that moment when, upon hearing the sound of key and lock, the dog's head and shoulders contract like a great furry spring, the beast at once becoming cannon and cannonball, then recoiling, firing itself toward the door, its jaw dropping, its tongue dangling from one side of its mouth, a mouth, I might add, full of sparkling white teeth and sweet breath that an owner will gladly kiss, even while shuddering at the thought of drinking from another person's water glass. Thus leaving no doubt who is man's best friend. It is probably just a matter of time until the church itself begins canonizing dogs, and we are flooded with little holy cards displaying a haloed likeness of Saint Fido the 13th, his tail wagging reverently, his eyes trained upward to God. On the other hand, I do not recall a single verse about a calico bounding through the snow, meowing urgently as it traverses field and valley, then reporting to young Timmy that Mom and Dad are stranded in a drift, out of gas precisely 16.2 miles south of Old Route 8, and the car requires premium fuel, which he should buy at the corner station where it is 9 cents cheaper per gallon, all of which any dog can do with a few well-chosen barks. I suspect even those stories of the intrepid tabby unwittingly hitching a ride in a boxcar, then traipsing home dutifully across 1,000 miles of open prairie are only because the creature remembered leaving one Persian rug unclawed, or a cushion on the living room sofa unpeed on. My own cat, this is the eulogy part, my own cat was certainly no inspiration as it sat aloof and motionless, with eyes squinted and the tip of its pink tongue peeking out between the razors of its teeth, when I raised the garage each door each night and announced I was home. A door the cat found amusing and played tag with as it ground shut behind me, the kitty ultimately surrendering its 9 lives all at once after failing to recognize the portal as a thinly disguised guillotine.
Someone throw something at me.
Yeah. I'll read one more for you. I'm choosing my battle here, so bear with me. Okay. All right. I'll wait.
Pump the sound everywhere. Gotta work on those outdoor speakers.
I will end with this one called Passing the Torch.
To war?
Pardon?
Passing the torch to war?
In a way, figuratively speaking, that would be appropriate.
Oh, I get it.
Passing the torch.
Yeah, of course.
It's a metaphor, Steve. It's a metaphor. Something happened at the close of last year, the last few months. The oldest person in the world died. And the next person, who had been the second oldest person, no great mathematics here, became the oldest person in the world. And that person was the oldest person in the world, I think, for about 2 months. Now, after that first person, whose name was Elizabeth Elsie Bolden, had passed away, before the second guy, who became the oldest living person in the world, passed away, I had written about this, and it was almost as if the second oldest guy had read the poem and decided he should go with the flow. I wouldn't have done it that way, but I also learned something new for poetry. It's a wonderful word. It's a little epigraph, that little writing at the top of a poem. If you want to sound really cool, you say epigraph, and if he knows what he's doing, epigraph. Anyhow, this poem has an epigraph. Thursday, December the 12th, 2006, Memphis, Tennessee. Elizabeth Lizzie Bolden, recognized as the world's oldest person, died Monday in a nursing home. She was 116. The way the news wires will rattle off an endless litany of wases and wheres, of preceded ins and survived bys as though you were there, insightful to the end, calling plays for this great pyramid of begats. How they will vignette your life, likened to a track star, ending your part of the relay on a crisp autumn morning, your arm outstretched with the torch or scepter, or whatever one passes to the next in line, before you double over at trackside to heave and regain your breath, then raise a fist in triumph. You might even note in passing, you were the champ for a few months at most, shelving on the mantle a trophy they'd rather not think about owning someday. Not the least of these being the second oldest living person, who has no choice now, even with his hand pressed flat to his side, but to feel the slap of the baton on his palm as you eke by and slow to a halt. Though he finally might realize, in a rare, lucid moment, there is just no future in it.